Before we begin, this story already has a previous part on my channel. If you haven't watched part 1 and 2 yet, I highly recommend checking it out first for the full experience. Jin and the tall man continue walking together, passing through many beautiful and scenic places along the way. The views are peaceful and full of life. Hakama keeps guiding him properly, showing him the surroundings as they travel. After some time, they finally stop and set up camp for the night. While resting, Jin asks Hakama how far the royal capital is. She tells him that it will take about 4 more days of walking to reach there. Hearing this, Jin realizes that the capital is not as far as he originally thought. However, Hakama becomes curious about him. She wants to know why he is so determined to explore the world and what his real purpose is. Jin refuses to answer her question and simply says that it is a secret. Deep inside, he is thinking seriously about the situation. Based on what Kagura told him, he knows that the corruptors still exist. He has already encountered some of them in this era. Normally, these creatures reproduce in destroyed and polluted environments, but this place is completely different. It is clean and full of life. This makes Jin realize that something unusual is happening. Either something or someone is causing changes behind the scenes, and he knows this needs to be investigated. While thinking deeply, Jin makes a very serious face. Seeing this, Hakama gets a little scared. She is not used to seeing him like that. Jin notices her reaction and quickly apologizes for worrying her. Jin understands one important thing. This world is not fully taken over by the corruptors. There are still many signs of life and survival everywhere. Because of this, he decides that his first goal is to learn more about the people living in this era. After that, he will focus on dealing with the corruptors. Studying the monsters is not too difficult for him since he can do that any time on his own. After thinking about all this, Jin asks Hakama for one simple change. He tells her to stop calling him guardian god. He feels uncomfortable because she shows him too much respect. Instead, he asks her to just call him Jin. Suddenly, both of them hear the sound of a horse running fast. The noise quickly catches their attention. Soon, a holy knight arrives along with his team and asks for a moment to speak with them. The knight looks like a handsome and noble person, almost like a prince, but Jin is not impressed at all and directly asks who he is. The man introduces himself as Argus Alton, the captain of the 7th Division of the Holy Knight Order. Jin finds this interesting because he has only recently heard about holy knights. He wonders if these are the powerful people the villagers were talking about. Among Argus's group, one knight named Karina suddenly gets angry. She shouts at Jin for being disrespectful and not standing up properly in front of her captain. She even goes as far as accusing Jin and Hakama of being suspicious. Argus quickly tells her to calm down. Karina continues complaining in the background while Argus speaks to Jin more politely. Jin is curious about why Karina said those things earlier, but Argus ignores it and says she was just being rude. Then, Argus changes the topic and asks Jin about his identity, where he came from and where he is going. Hakama answers for them and explains that they are from Kodama village and are heading toward the royal capital. Karina immediately reacts again. She takes this as proof and starts acting arrogant. She accuses them of being from an inferior species and begins showing off as if she is very intelligent for figuring it out. Jin, however, is more interested in something else. He is surprised to learn that this world has birth records and proper systems like that. It shows him how advanced this era has become. Argus once again stops Karina from making careless assumptions. He carefully observes Hakama and points out that she is wearing special Kodama clothing. These clothes are known for their high quality and are respected even in the capital. He explains that normal village children do not wear such fine clothes, which proves that Hakama is truly from Kodama village. This clearly shows that Karina was wrong. Even though Argus is sure about Hakama, he still becomes suspicious of Jin. He draws his sword and points it directly at him, saying that Jin is different from the others. He mentions that he has never seen clothes like Jin's before and questions where he really comes from. Argus then explains that many bandits have been attacking people on the road between Kodama village and the capital. Because of this, he suspects that Jin might be one of those criminals who kidnaps children and that Hakama might be pretending to be innocent to help him. Hakama quickly tries to deny this accusation, but the knights do not believe her at all. Without thinking carefully, Hakama prepares to attack, but before she can do anything, several magical swords surround her from all directions, trapping her in place. Argus praises her after seeing
seeing this, he acknowledges that she has divine powers, which is something rare. At the same time, Jin is quietly observing everything. He is impressed by the strength of the holy knights. From what he can see, Argus is truly powerful, and Jin understands that immediately.
Now that Argus is standing there with full authority, he firmly demands that Jin explain where he came from. He makes it clear that this answer will decide whether Jin is allowed to live or not. Hearing this, Jin gives him a very cold and dangerous look, almost like he is ready to kill. The tension in the air becomes very heavy. However, after a moment, Jin controls himself and decides not to act on his anger. Instead, he calmly says that he came from Kadama village. Karina immediately jumps in and calls him a liar right to his face. But surprisingly, Argus believes Jin's answer. He lowers his weapon and accepts what he said. This sudden change is shocking, especially since just a moment ago he was threatening Jin's life. Argus explains that he can sense that Jin is not lying. At that moment, Hakama proudly declares that Jin is the guardian god of their village. The idea of a guardian god interests Argus, but he does not take it too seriously. He simply turns around and prepares to leave. He gets back on his horse and apologizes for his earlier behavior. He explains that everything he did was part of his duty as a holy knight. Before leaving, he says that they will most likely meet again at the royal capital. He even tells them that they can come to him if they face any trouble on the way. After saying this, he quickly leaves with his team. Karina looks very disappointed because she clearly wanted a bigger conflict to happen. Even Jin feels confused by her strange desire for unnecessary drama. In the next scene, Argus and his team are traveling toward their next destination. Karina continues complaining, saying that Jin seemed suspicious and that they should not have let someone from an inferior species go so easily. Hearing this, Argus lightly mocks her and asks if she even understands who the real inferior one was in that situation. Rhea agrees with him, which shocks Karina even more. Rhea explains that the difference in power between them and Jin was huge, almost like the difference between humans and a god. Argus then reveals something surprising. At that moment earlier, he tried to make a move against Jin 3 different times, but he could not go through with it. He felt that if he tried anything, Jin would instantly react and stop him before he could even act. Even though Jin had his hand casually in his pocket, he was fully ready to counter any attack. Argus also admits that he tried to use his divine power, but it did not even activate properly in front of Jin. This shocks Karina deeply. The same ability that easily trapped Hakama could not work on Jin at all. Rhea tried something similar, but she failed as well. This makes it clear that Jin is on a completely different level compared to them. According to Argus, a feat like this could only be matched by someone at the level of the Supreme Commander of the Night Order, and even that is uncertain. Karina is left speechless. She had no idea how outclassed they were during that encounter. Argus then explains that they just met someone very unusual, someone who cannot be compared to normal people. He tells Karina not to worry too much since she is still new to the team. Argus also shares his suspicion that the person who defeated the giant monster attacking Kadama village might actually be Jin himself. Karina becomes worried and says that this situation is dangerous. However, Argus stays calm and explains that it is more dangerous to attack someone when they know nothing about him. He also points out that Jin seemed calm and did not show any hostility. For now, their mission is to return to the royal capital because their job here is already finished. They also decide that they should report the situation about the bandits to the guild. As Argus thinks to himself, he becomes very interested in Jin, the so-called guardian god of Kadama village. He even wonders if Jin could become their ally. It could solve many problems that their country is facing. The story then returns to Jin and Hakama, who are back on the road. Jin mentions that they met someone quite interesting earlier. He wonders if all holy knights are as strong as Argus. Hakama explains that Argus is not an ordinary knight. Even among the Night Order, only the strongest and most talented people become holy knights and lead others. Argus is one of the best among them. She also talks about how fast Argus activated his spirit power during their encounter. Jin doesn't understand this term, so Hakama explains that in this era, the power they use by borrowing strength from spirits is called divine power. The techniques used to gain such power are known as spirit methods or spirit arts. In simple words, people in this world think that Kagura and Jin's nanomachines are like some kind of spirits, something they cannot truly understand. To them, it feels mysterious and beyond their knowledge. Jin understands that from their point of view, his abilities must look like something out of a strange fantasy. Even so, he cannot stop thinking about Karina and how angry she used to get when talking about so-called lesser beings. Because of this, Jin becomes curious about the term and starts learning more about the current era. He discovers that there are many different races living in this world. Some of them even look like insects or fish. From what Hakima's grandmother once said, there are certain races that can only live in water or in very specific environments. However, things were not always like this. Over time, these creatures changed and evolved to survive better in their surroundings. This idea fascinates Jin. He immediately starts thinking that maybe some humans from the past survived, and over millions of years, their descendants evolved into these new forms of life. Still, he does not want to think too deeply about such a huge possibility. Instead, Jin comes to a simpler conclusion. He believes that the people who failed to adapt to their environment ended up becoming what this world calls inferior species. Since they could not change, they are seen as weak and useless, like bottom feeders. Because of this, society treats them very badly. They are looked down upon, ignored, and even sold as slaves. The idea that slavery still exists in this era makes Jin uncomfortable. But Hakima has a very different opinion. She firmly says that there is not much difference between them and those so-called inferior beings. She does not understand why people treat others so badly just because they are different. In her eyes, everyone is strange in their own way. Hearing her say this, Jin feels impressed by her way of thinking, especially since she is still so young. While they are talking, suddenly someone appears in front of them. It is a young person who looks injured and exhausted. The kid suddenly collapses on the road and begs them for help. Hakima quickly runs toward the child to help. At the same time, Jin carefully observes the situation. He notices that the kid does not have any animal-like features, such as ears, which means this person is most likely human. The kid's body is covered in bruises from head to toe. These injuries do not look like something that happened by accident. Hakima tries her best to lift the person up while Jin quietly activates his power to heal them. But instead of being thankful, the situation suddenly changes. The injured kid instantly stops pretending, pulls out a blade and holds it against Hakima's neck. The kid threatens to kill her if Jin moves even a little. This is completely different from what Jin expected. At that moment, he realized that this was a trap from the very beginning. Staying calm, Jin quickly scans his surroundings to find anyone else hiding nearby. Then, suddenly, a man appears out of nowhere, as if he just came into existence. The captain praises the kid, named Puar, for successfully following his instructions. The man explains that the ability they used is called stealth camouflage. It works by using nanomachines to copy the surrounding environment and create a kind of invisibility cloak. However, this ability has a weakness. The invisibility stops working if the user moves. Even so, these people manage to use it very effectively. The captain then starts insulting Jin. He calls him an inferior species and mocks his clothes. He also asks where Jin came from, but Jin stays completely silent, showing no reaction at all. Hakima, feeling scared, calls out to Jin. The captain immediately threatens her, saying he will kill her if Jin dares to move. Without thinking, Hakima tries to use her power, but Jin suddenly shouts at her to stop. He does not want her to use such dangerous power on people, as it could lead to serious consequences. Hakima becomes confused and unsure of what to do. Meanwhile, the captain is clearly enjoying the situation. He realizes that Hakima might have some kind of divine power. Curious, they ask Jin if he also has such strength, but Jin decides to stay mysterious and does not give them a clear answer.
And that's it for today's recap. If you enjoyed the story and want to see what happens next, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more manhwa recaps just like this.